Welcome in, listeners. This is Margin Mavens, a podcast hosted by Steph and Kayla, where we share our thoughts on all things literature. Today, we are joined by Zakiya and Jamal as we talk about her novel, If We Were a Movie. In the story, we are following Rochelle, a hardworking teenager who wants to do nothing else but focus and get into the college of her dreams. But things take a turn when she finds a job at a popular movie place and working with Amira, a friend turned academic competition. Now, make sure to grab a snack and a drink. Unless you're driving, then remember 10 and 2 and hang out with us while we dive in. This book was so freaking cute.
It was so cute.
Yay, thank you.
This
I'm
book
glad y'all
was
liked
so
it.
cute. Me as a teenager needed this book.
Yes.
Mm.
100%.
And
Absolutely.
That was so cute. Before we get into any sort of spoilers or anything like that, what was your inspiration for the story?
Yeah, so this was an interesting process because I worked with a book packager, which is basically like they kind of come up with an idea, like an outline, and they hire a writer to write it. So in this case, my friend was an editor there at the time, and so she kind of hit me up and was like, would love for you to come write a book for us. And I was like, okay, great. And she is actually really into movies. She's like Alamo Draft House Pass kind of girly. So that is where the movie aspect came in, and then I kind of just made it my own. So I like grew up on Long Island, so I set it there. My mom was a single mom, so that I gave to Rochelle, and I obviously really wanted a queer sapphic love story. So I kind of made it my own from there, but the general like original idea was through the packager.
I had never even heard of a book packager before. This is a whole different
Yeah,
world.
it's very interesting because it's like if you're not in the industry, you don't like no one's gonna pick up my book and be like, oh, this was a book package deal or whatever.
Right.
So it's very like if you're in it, you would know, but outside, like no one has any idea. Like there are a lot of books that were created by book packagers that no one has a clue about.
Huh. That's gonna
wild.
send me on a rabbit hole after this episode, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I could list some. Like we could talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Wait.
Okay. So like the biggest ones I think that people would know. So Alloy Entertainment is like a huge book packager, and so like they created a lot of the books that we grew up with. So like Gossip Girl, The Click, Private Series. I think A-List was another one too. One of the vampire books. I don't want to say the wrong one, but there's definitely one of those vampire series was definitely them as well. I want to say Vampire Diaries, but maybe double check me on that one. But I definitely know Goth Girl, Click, all of those like rich girl stories was through Alloy Entertainment. And like Everything by Nicola Yoon was also Alloy. So there's a lot of them that just like you wouldn't know unless you were like working in the industry. But it's an interesting process because it's basically like they kind of have an outline of an idea and then they hire writers to write the book, and then it's like obviously you write the book like as the author you have to still write the whole thing, but like the premise is usually like something they come up with, and sometimes it's one book, sometimes it's series like Gossip Girl. But yeah, it's a whole business. So
did you have to audition?
yes, I did. Yeah. So I had the packager that I worked with was Electric Postcard Entertainment, and they use Submittable, which is what a lot of like writing publisher places use. Yes, I had to apply and submit writing samples.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so then going kind of into your process and stuff, once you had been chosen, what was your process or like what did you do to actually write the book? Were you somebody that used notebooks? Were you fully digital?
I use both. So I like actually draft on my computer, but I always have a notebook for every book that I'm writing just for like, notes or like outlining or like any kind of like quick thoughts that I want to get down. I always have a notebook next to me for that, for like quick little scribbles. But yeah, so for this, we sold the book on proposal, so I didn't write the whole book before we sold it. I think I wrote, I don't know, 50 to 100 pages of the book first. And then we took it out on submission and sold it to HarperCollins, which is my publisher. And then I wrote the rest of the book, which isn't usually the traditional way of how things work. So that was really interesting process. But yeah, I worked on it. I think I started or I officially signed in early 2022. So it's been a long time.
What's the
Yeah, that is a long
what's
time.
the deadline side of things look like when you haven't like completed the book and they've purchased it?
Hmm. I mean, it's pretty similar in that, so usually, so I have another book, my adult novel, which is more the traditional process of things. So with that, I submitted the whole book and they bought the whole book. But then the first thing, or the first deadline I got was to do my revision. And every editor is different on how they give notes and want you to revise. My editor was more like, these are my general thoughts, like big picture ideas rather than like line by line kind of thing. And then she was like, kind of go forth and do that. So if we were a movie, it was kind of similar in that my editor was like, here are my thoughts on how this can proceed and like changes that I think you should make, finish the book basically. And I can't remember how long I had to do that. I I want to say like maybe a month or two. It wasn't a long time, but I did it. But yeah, so it varies, but it's usually kind of just like big picture edits first. And then once we kind of have the like, we know what it's going to look like, they'll do what's called line edits, which is when they go kind of literally line by line and give you editorial notes.
Huh.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, that whole process.
It also sounds very
Yeah, it was
stressful,
like it
though.
sounds very overwhelming.
Like a month or two? Like,
I will say
oh.
it's different for I think everybody because there's some books that have a tighter turnaround versus
Yeah.
like others that have a little more lead time. And for if we were a movie originally, it was going to be published in fall 24, and they thankfully were like that's not enough time, and so which is why it was published this spring. So I did they're usually like even with the deadline, like the deadline is real, but like if you cannot make that deadline for whatever reasons, they're usually pretty flexible about that.
And how do you attack the like editing process? Like when you had to do those first revisions, what's kind of your way of doing it?
Yeah, so I am a rewriter. So for me, I typically have like the original doc on one screen and like a fresh, brand new document that's totally blank in another screen. And I literally rewrite the book. And obviously with those changes in mind. So like as I'm going through, I'm making changes to it. But yeah, I literally like fresh new document. We're just gonna start from the top and do it all over again. So that's what I do.
Did you ever like go like, "Oh, that paragraph is good. I'm just going to copy and paste it."
Oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Especially because when I'm rewriting, things sometimes shift. Like I'm like, oh, like this happened too soon. This needs to happen later, or whatever that may be. So I'll usually have another document
Mm.
where I'll like drop something that I'm like, okay, this happened too early, but we're gonna need that later. So I just know to come
Mhm.
back to it, and then I'll drop it back in.
So then in this editing process, what was something that you found yourself doing a lot that you had to like work on? Like what was, some authors they'll go and look through and say like, "Oh, I'm using this word too often," or,
Mm.
something.
Yeah, I'm a just girly. I use just too much. I've always been this way. This is like when I was in grad school, my thesis advisor was like, you need to just command F and search for just and snip snip. So I've always been that way. So that and one thing that ended up happening, which was really funny, is so I was writing If We Were a Movie and my adult around the same time. Like I would switch on and off between the two documents. And so at some point during the revision process, I got a note from my editor, and they were like, because I had like a few different editors, but somebody was like, in the second half of your book, they started swearing a lot. Like in the first half, they're not really swearing at all, but that back half, they're dropping f bombs. Like it's a little much. And they were like, listen, we don't care if they say it. But like in the beginning, they were kind of kids that don't curse, and then they suddenly became kids that do. So we just need to figure
They were
out which
traumatized
one.
halfway through.
Yeah. LOL. So yeah, so I was like, oh, that was my B. I definitely was in my like adult headspace halfway through the book, and I just started using swear words more than I planned to in my YA. So I had to go back and like cut some of those, so it wasn't like getting an F-bomb every other page.
Yeah, I guess.
Is there anything?
No, go.
Oh, sorry. Is there anything that got cut that you would have liked to have seen in the final?
I don't think so. There were some things that like there was a question about cutting it, and I was like, no. I was like, no, it stays. And thankfully, like my editor was like pretty like supportive of those. Like there are sometimes like when an editor will have a no and you'll have to push back on it. And my editor was pretty supportive of that. So I don't think there's anything that we ended up cutting that I like felt needed to be in the final.
What do those conversations look like when you have to give like a pushback?
Yeah,
in my head, I just send like an emoji of like a thumbs down.
So in the industry, it's called STET. So basically, when you get a document with your edits, there'll be a comment. And so if you don't want to change it, you would reply with STET, which is mean you want it to stay. Again, typically, like if you have a good relationship with your editor, that's kind of the end of the conversation. It's like, I want to keep it, we're keeping it. There might be a question with the comment, like, so for example, one that happened was there's a scene, I think Rochelle is the one who says it, where she's like, there's something LGBTQ happening.
Yeah.
And yeah. And my editor was like, well, the people know what this means. And I was like, the gays will.
The gays will. How many times do we say there's some gay shit happening here?
Exactly. I was like, no, the gays will. And so I said that. So that was more of just like she like gave her reasoning for why she was like, maybe we need to cut it. And I was just kind of like, we're keeping it. And that was the whole conversation. So yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Gotcha. And then talking more like industry stuff, since we're in that like spoiler free section.
Mm-hmm.
What input do you as the author have over like cover image, over anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I had input. So basically, when it came to the cover, out the gate, they were like, what are your ideas for a cover? Like, what do you hope it looks like? So they asked me for like examples of covers I liked and also examples of covers I didn't like, so they could kind of get a sense of like what I was looking for. And then I think I have like 2 books coming out this year, so I'm like trying to remember what happened with both of those. For If We Were a Movie, I think they picked the illustrator and then sent me sketches. So we had a few options, like I think 2 or 3. And we kind of all agreed we wanted what ended up being the final cover, which is them sitting in the movie theater. There was another option of them outside the movie theater, so you see it in the background. Maybe those were the only 2 options. I can't remember what the third option was. So those are like our 2 options. And so we all kind of agreed we liked the one where they're in the movie theater. The only changes that I had really was Amira looked more masked. And I was like, she is not masked. She needs to be more femme. But otherwise, we were pretty like from the beginning knew that was the direction we wanted to go in. So once we made that change, and I think there were maybe like a little other tweaks here and there, but that was always like pretty much from the jump. Like we didn't have a lot of back and forth, which was really nice. But so we got to talk about it, and I was involved, which was very nice.
Yeah, because I like that even like the color palette is super like gay. Big fan.
Yeah. I think one of the things I said early on was like pink is my favorite color. So if we can do that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So moving into kind of plot and the spoilery section, listeners, we meet Rochelle, and it's so interesting in like a YA book specifically, in like such a short amount of time, you see her character growth, because when we meet her, she is like wound up.
Yeah.
This kid
She
is
is.
stressed about everything,
Hmm.
and that it's going to be something that has to change in order for her to continue on and, grow up.
Yeah.
Did you always know that that was kind of the path that she was going to have to go on? Or was that something that you kind of
Uh,
realized like needed to happen?
yeah, I think I always knew because I don't think there's any way for her to end up in a relationship with Amira without going on that journey. Like I felt like the two were pretty intertwined. Like I think she did need to, open up and like let go of some of her anxieties and her stresses about college to allow herself to be in a relationship with Amira. So yeah, I think I always knew that was going to be part of it.
The part that I found most relatable was the fact that her mom was in cahoots with all of these people around her.
Yeah.
Did How did you see that kind of conversation playing out? Was it always going to be that kind of like calm until they had that like breakdown? Or what I really enjoy was the fact that the mom never gets like nasty, like she kind
Hmm.
of walks in
Yeah.
knowing that she messed up, and she kind of like
Yeah.
Mhm.
allows her daughter to have that grace of like, yeah, all right, I'm gonna let you talk to me real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, their mother-daughter relationships can always be so complicated. But I think
Mhm.
at like the core of their relationship is that they are a team. And I think what Rochelle's mom like understands is like in Rochelle's mind, her mom kind of betrayed what they have as a team because she worked with people that weren't Rochelle and she was making these plans and ideas and everything that was outside of their relationship. And so I think Rochelle's mom kind of quickly realizes like that's the issue. And she can like sense that betrayal. So I think I always knew that like again, like Rochelle and her feelings about school and being stressed and all of that was gonna be really tied to her relationship to her mom. And so that conversation was something I worked really hard to get right because I knew it was like a big crux of the story. Like obviously it's a romance, it's about Michelle and Amira, but also even their relationship is so tied to both of their moms. So I really wanted to get that part of the story right, which is so I took a lot of time with that one to make sure because it's like, especially for Rochelle who always is thinking about her mom and thinking about making her proud and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. I think it's also hard for Rochelle to be angry with her mom. And so having her mom kind of acknowledge that was really important.
Yeah, I think the scene was really well put together. I really liked how the mom kind of handled everything because I think it's really easy for a story like that or a conversation like that to like devolve very quickly. And so I
Yeah.
like that her
Hmm.
mom
Real
like
quick.
caught herself before she like fed into any sort of like anger and kind of just let her teenage daughter, rant a little.
Yeah.
Um Kayla, I'm monopolizing. Go for it.
There are so many fun and colorful side characters
Hmm.
in this book. Can you talk a little bit about how they all came to be? Like, are they based off of your own friend group?
Hmm.
Like, it's all so they're all so cute and they're just babies, and I just want to know more about them.
Yeah, I mean, I thankfully have a pretty diverse friend group, and so I
Mhm.
knew that I wanted to make the cast of characters like that. None of my characters are like any of the people that I know in real life, like a copy and paste kind of situation. But I definitely pulled from people that I know. So like Carrie and Taylor, I knew that I wanted her Rochelle's main group of close friends to
Mhm.
be two other black girls, because that's just what I had growing up. And
Right.
so, and I put that in my acknowledgments. Like, I have two of my friends that I grew up with who we are still very close friends, where I was like, our relationship is kind of like this, but like they are not you. And then for the movie theater, I did not work at a movie theater when I was in high school, but I worked at a concert theater, so it's very similar. And it's always so funny to see the different people that end up working in like concessions. And so I really wanted to have different personalities and like different backgrounds and like because there's like working in concessions, you do end up in like such weird, wonky situations sometimes that happen in the
Yeah.
books. And so the way that different people react to them is always so fun for me. So I really wanted to make sure we had different perspectives and just different personalities. And it was also just fun for me to write it that way, like having to write characters who are all different and you get to like put them in these scenarios is way more fun than like they're all exactly the same.
The
So
same.
that was really
Yeah.
fun for me.
Um, the other question I had isn't really like spoiler related, but it's when it comes down to like Glory and their uncles and
Hmm.
all of that and the history of
Hmm.
the theater. Did you pull any of that from real life, or
Hmm.
did was that like sort of come up with on the fly, like sort of like a way to circle everything together?
Yeah, so it was a mix of both. So I did research, like I wanted to see if there was a Black-owned movie theater on Long Island, if there was like
Hmm.
something that I could pull from. And there wasn't really anything that worked for the story. There's like a drive-in theater that I saw, but nothing that like in the context of the book would have worked.
Right.
So I had to make a lot of it up. And I did pull like the history of Long Island in terms of the segregation part of it and like
Hmm.
that the like what they found in the news clippings was very much pulled from my research. But the like history of the theater itself was very much made up.
I still love it. I still love it so
Yeah, it
much.
was really good.
It's a little treasure trove of cinematic
Memorabilia and stuff.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
memorabilia in the basement was fun. The basement itself, that whole scene was just a fun like, why are we going down the basement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like this is the classic start of a horror
Yeah.
movie. Why are
Yeah.
we doing this?
Um when it comes to so the entire book ends up hinging kind of on the idea that this movie theater is failing economically, right? It's not pulling in money
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And then during the summer things start happening, right? I was fully expecting it to be ghosts. I'm always just expecting it to turn into a Scooby-Doo movie. That's
Mm-hmm.
my thing. What was kind of your thought process behind having the suspicions all lead to Pete, right? And then actually
Mm-hmm.
have it be Pete? Because it's not often that
Mm-hmm.
all of the
Yeah.
suspicions are very like, hey, it's probably this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it actually ends
Yeah.
up being that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was I struggled to find who the person would be, and I also we had a conversation when I was working on it, about Pete's motivations because I originally went a little darker in that I was like, oh, Pete's like, he wants the movie theater to fail because he's like racist or something like that. And then we were kind of like, hey, what if we don't deal with that today? Like, what if we don't have to talk about racism today? Maybe that's a bit much. Which I was like, you know what, fair. Like we just want to have a fun, silly time. And so once I kind of like got to that decision, I was like, you know what? The mystery for me obviously is a plot point, but I was kind of just like, it doesn't have to be that deep. Like I was like,
Right.
because I was like, I was gonna throw in or try to throw in some more red herrings, and then that just kind of spiraled into. I was like, okay, well then who are these red herrings? We got to come up with like some alternative plot scenarios, and it was just kind of getting in the way of like the Rochelle and Amira of it all because I do only have like I didn't
Hmm.
want this to be like an extremely long book. And so I was kind of like, you know what, we will. And the funny thing about this is because it's so obvious, some people immediately were like, it can't be him because it's too obvious. And so it also worked for me, mystery
Yeah.
wise, because people are like, nah, it can't be him. And then they're like, wait, it is. And I was like, gotcha. So yeah,
I
so
pointed
which
at
was
him.
not intentional. Yeah, exactly. It was not intentional, but I have heard that from people where they were like, I was like, there's no way she's making it this easy, and then it was, and I was like, yeah, I did do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, it was more just simply for me, like I really wanted this to be about Rochelle and Amira, and I was just like, well, we
Hmm.
need to have a mystery, but like I'm not gonna make it too complicated. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I liked the twist when it came to the mystery being that I forgot his name.
Is it Derek? No.
Oh, the friend?
Yeah.
Pete's friend?
Yeah.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah. I like
Derek.
that the twist was that he really had no clue. You know, because you got to see that moment of like, I defended you, dude. Like,
right, yeah, the betrayal of it,
Yeah, like
yeah. I debated that. I did, because I was like, would Derek be a part of this? I was like, I really had to sit with like, would Derek also betray them? Because that would be, I think, part of the twist. Like, if I was like, let's make this mystery real. I want to shock the people. But I was just like, Derek's not that kind of dude. I was like, does Derek do his job well? No.
But he cares.
He cares. That's the thing.
He wouldn't want to upset his girlfriend.
Exactly. And I was just like, it's not in Derek's character to be a part of these shenanigans. So I was like, no. I was like, Derek's a good dude. He's just also a very trusting person. And he really wanted to believe his friend.
Yeah, I felt for him. Because he doesn't talk much, and then he was like, dude, like, when I did talk,
he
I was
had a lot to
defending you.
Yeah.
I used my word count on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a lie. Yeah. But it's also, part of that is like, they're at this point where you do have friends, and sometimes they turn out to be someone that you're like, oh, like, you've done something I don't agree with. Like, this is not something I can support you in, because especially for the returners, like, obviously we really see Derek's betrayal, but we also see it with Amira, where it's like, this is someone they've worked with, like, they've been in the trenches with this person, and so to know that they were the ones who, like, because like Pete knows how hard it is to work at this theater. He knows the theater's failing. Like, even though he's like, I didn't think it was this serious. Like, but like, you kind of know. You were there. Like, you get it. And so for it to be this person who you worked with and you like probably, spent a lot of time with and like joked around with and all this stuff, to really learn that this is the person who's done this to you. Because for like Rochelle and the twins and even Carrie, they're like, obviously it's him. But I think even for Amira, and the other returners and Sean and everybody else, they didn't want to believe that. So I think that was also the hard part for them.
Yeah.
What was something you learned about or learned during the process of writing this book that kind of surprised you, if any?
Ooh, I think maybe how, I think really just how hard it is sometimes to get into a character's head. Like, I love Rochelle, but we are very different people. And it took me a bit to figure out what her motivations were and like why she is the way that she is. And originally I had been writing the book in third person. And that just was not working for me. Like, I really needed to switch to first person so I could get more into her head. And so I think I also learned that like sometimes you just have to like try different things. Like, I rewrote the first couple of chapters a few times before I was finally like, okay, I think I like understand who she is and like where this is going. Because yeah, in the beginning I was kind of like, and like even my editor were like, she can't be this mean because we do need them to like each other eventually. And I was like, you're so right. So there were like moments where I had to like dial it back and like, also realize like she has these feelings and her thoughts because of like how like everything with her mom and like everything else. I really had to figure out, get in her head really, and like understand why she is the way she is, because sometimes I was a little, I was like, oh, she's too mean. We gotta dial it back. Which worked out.
Yeah, we love the gay panic that she has, because I think anybody who's has kind of that light bulb go off of like, oh, I'm not straight, has had that gay panic, and I love that everybody around her was like, dude, everything you're talking about
is
a crush.
We know.
Yeah.
Do you know? Because
Yeah,
we
and she
know.
did not know. She did not know at all, which
No.
was really fun.
Yeah, I think it was really fun, not just in like the
Oh.
present time of dealing with her feelings, but also in like looking back as to why she didn't want
Mhm.
Amira
Yes.
around. Would like
Mhm.
make
Right.
sense
Yep.
because it was so funny because how are you gonna be aware that you're not straight? Like it'd be one
Yep.
thing if this was like a coming out story, you know, but like to
Yeah.
be aware of
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
still have it not cross her brain was so funny
Yeah.
because we've all
Yeah.
been in that situation
We've all
at
been
least
there.
once, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um you have
Any
go. No.
any plans? I know you have an adult
Mhm.
novel coming out. Any plans to go back to YA, or was this
Mhm.
just sort of like a one time?
Yeah, I have another book that I am working on that could go either way, YA or adult. It's set at a college. So
Okay.
we'll see what happens with that. It is not finished, nor have I sold it. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, in general, I'm always open to going back to YA. I just, like I said, I was kind of writing both books at the same time. So my next just
Right.
happens to be adult. But yeah, I love YA. I love writing for kids and about kids. I think they're so fun. So I'm totally open.
What's
Awesome.
the major differences that you found writing both of them at the same time? We've talked about like the cursing and stuff, but what was kind
Mhm.
of
Um, it's funny because it's like they're similar in a lot of ways, but I think the biggest difference for me was like dealing with adults, the way they respond to things is different. Especially because so like in my adult, it's very my main character Stella has this job and the love interest owns this AI company and he like made this AI that Stella is worried is gonna steal her job. And so a lot of the conflict around them is tied to their occupation, which like in a way is similar with if we were a movie because they do work at the movie
Hmm.
theater, but the movie theater job is not like what's gonna keep them fed, housed, and clothed. So it's like their
Right.
drama is a little more like, I mean, it's serious to them, but
yeah.
it's not like that
Hmm.
serious. Whereas like the fights that happen in my adult are very much like,
You're getting in the way of
bro,
rent, dude.
right, right. Like
Yeah.
this is like serious. And so it was interesting having like more of a like these are grown up issues. But I think otherwise like it is similar to me in that like you have to hit the same kind of beats with like how they fall in love, the conflict, and how that gets resolved and like the humor of it is something that I think I put into both books. Like I love humor and I love a good friend group. And so that's clear in both my books. Like in my adult, there's another queer friend group. And so, yeah, I mean, in that way, they're similar. It's just more, I think, the subject matter gets different, but otherwise, like it was pretty similar in that way.
Do you always want to write romance?
Well, the next thing that I'm working on that's like the YA new adult situation is a murder mystery.
Nice.
So no. I mean, I probably like the majority of the things that I write will be romance just because I love romance, but I'm always open to
Hmm.
trying different things. And this murder mystery I've been working on since I was in grad school, so we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I'm always open to trying different things, and so we'll see what happens with that one.
I'm out of
Something
questions.
a little more specific back to the book,
Hmm.
since we're talking about romance. We have that scene towards the end, like in the third act, where Rochelle follows Amira into the bathroom, and Amira just turns around and is like, all right, fine, like let's just do this, just break up with me and we'll be done with it. And I, like Amira, was fully expecting that to happen and it
Hmm.
didn't. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about your decision not to have that, breakup, makeup
Hmm.
sort of situation?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think for me, the third act breakup of the story happens at Amira's house when
House, yeah.
Rochelle finds out that Amira got her the job and like her mom knew, etc. And obviously we have the conflict with her mom from that, but I think
Hmm.
what the conversation that she has with her mom, Rochelle kind of accepts already in that conversation why Amira did what she did. So I kind of felt, because I think that was also a scene that I wrote a couple of times where I was like, okay, do they need to have a fight about this? But I felt like, especially having the conversation with her mom and like kind of like, and Rochelle ends the fight with her mom asking that question of like, was falling in love with my dad worth it? And her mom's like, yeah. And I think for Rochelle, that's kind of the moment where she's like, okay, like Amira did this thing that I didn't love, obviously, but I know that I
Right.
still really like her. And so I'm willing to move past this, because I think she's also aware that like Amira is apologetic for it. Like Amira is not like, you know, Amira doesn't really push back on like that she did something wrong. Like she tells her like, yeah, if you'd known, you wouldn't have done it, but that's why I did it. And
Right.
we also don't see all the texts and phone calls that Amira sends to Rochelle, but she does try. And so I think that's enough for Rochelle to be like, I'm good. Like if you're good, I'm good. Um, and we also get the nice Rochelle confession of how she feels, which is great.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think
So
it was really
cute.
cute. I liked that the bigger betrayal came into Rochelle, at least from like her mom, as opposed to Amira, because she was like, at that point, Amira didn't owe me any like
Right.
loyalty, anything,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a really great way of like putting that together. I really enjoyed it. I was reading it on
It's just a
my
really
big
cute,
ass iPad,
sweet.
so you know that I was
Yeah.
I was
Not
locked
your
in.
iPad.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Uh,
Well, thank you. I mean, I loved writing in. I love that people have been enjoying the read.
would you do another book
Ooh,
package?
sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Groceries?
Oof.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Would you do another like
Okay.
book package?
I don't think so. I mean, so there's other, so book packaging is one way that what's called in IP or intellectual property happens, where someone comes up with the idea and you write it. But publishers do also do that in-house, where like an editor will have an idea and hire a writer to write it. So I think I would probably do it that way, like if a publisher came to me directly and did it. But I don't know if I would do it through a packager again, just because it's a whole journey. Because it's like you're working with a packager and then an agency and then the publisher, and it's just a lot. And at the time when I worked with the packager originally, I didn't have an agent, and now I do. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
That's fair. So this is normally the part of the episode where you can kind of talk your talk, let them know where they can find
Yeah.
you, let them know things that
Yeah.
you've got going on, if you have any events going on.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
So I am on pretty much all the socials at Zakiya and Jamal, same username on everything to make it really easy for the people. And I will be at Gaitherburg's Festival in Maryland. Oh wait, no, this comes out in June. Okay, well,
Yes.
ignore
She
that. Never
was at
mind.
Gaithersburg.
I was there. I will be at the Bronx Book Festival at the end of June, which I'm really excited about, and I will be at Barnes and Noble's Pride Festival at Union Square as well.
Nice.
And then my next book is my adult novel Sparks Fly, which comes out on December 2nd, which I'm really excited about.
That is super exciting.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you, listeners, for being here with us today. Hope you enjoyed learning more about If We Were a Movie, hearing about gay panic, hearing about
Yes.
a movie theater and all of the shenanigans that can happen. Make sure you follow the author and all the links down below and engage with us.
Buy the book.
Buy the book, read the book, support your gays. You know?
Yes.
This is the gay agenda.
Yeah. And thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being
Of course.
here.
Thank you.